You know, usually when we look at geography, there's this deep expectation of pure logic.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, it's a system built on engineering and absolute facts. You look at a map, you see a jagged blue line, and you just know, okay, that signifies a river.
Right. Or you see a massive blue expanse and you know it's an ocean.
Exactly. The physical world is, fixed, and maps are just our way of documenting those hard borders.
And I mean, it provides a really profound sense of comfort, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We naturally want our environment to be categorized to make logical sense based purely on location and coordinates.
We do. But then you encounter the town of Menca, and suddenly every map you have ever relied on is just completely useless.
Yeah, Menca kind of ruins everything you thought you knew about navigation.
It really does. We are looking at a geographic landscape today that defies literally every navigational rule we have, so welcome to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here for this one. It's a truly bizarre case.
It is. We are exploring this fascinating, beautifully detailed account titled Lighthouse for the Landlocked. And the mission for our deep dive today is to explore one of the most baffling geographical paradoxes out there.
And also uncover the really profound human truths hiding behind it.
Right. Because, listener, just picture this. A fully functional 63-foot-tall stone lighthouse. It has a lamp mechanism dating back to the 1880s, and it is meticulously tended to every single day.
Every single day.
But, and here's the kicker, this fully operational lighthouse is situated exactly 1,100 miles away from the nearest ocean.
Yeah, 1,100 miles. It sits dead in the geographic center of a vast, dry continent. I mean, if you were looking for the absolute last place on Earth that would require maritime navigation...
Well, this town would be it.
Exactly.
And to make it even more compelling, the central orienting figure in this town, which is pretty small, only about 1,200 people, it's not a mayor.
No.
It's not a local judge. It is a lighthouse keeper. His
Yeah.
name is Tomás, and he has been manning that tower for 40 years.
But Tomás doesn't guide ships through treacherous waters.
No, he doesn't. He guides the dead.
Right.
He literally burns physical, handwritten descriptions of the deceased in the lighthouse lamp to help them, navigate the afterlife.
And this is where our deep dive moves beyond just a simple exploration of a quirky local custom.
Yeah, it goes way deeper.
It really does. This source material offers a profound look at how humans process the impossible weight of grief. It forces us to look at the tension between simply maintaining a daily routine versus truly adopting belief.
Which is a huge distinction.
Huge. And most importantly, it explores what happens when a person who has built their entire existence around emotional detachment is suddenly confronted by family.
Family he never even knew he had.
Exactly.
So let's get into the actual logistics of this town first, because the mechanics are vital to understanding the psychology at play here. Menca is incredibly isolated. And the lighthouse itself, it doesn't run on standard petroleum or kerosene or whatever. It relies on a highly specific oil that is delivered every Tuesday by a local supplier.
Right, and the text notes, it's pressed from an uncatalogued source plant.
Yeah, some plant that grows only in the surrounding hills. And when it burns, it doesn't smell like fuel. It smells distinctly like rain hitting hot stone.
Which is such a vivid detail.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then there is the ritual the town partakes in. Families who have lost someone bring these folded pieces of paper describing their dead. But the keeper strictly refuses eulogies.
You won't take them.
No, they do not accept papers that say he was a good, honest man or she was a loving mother.
Because the tradition explicitly rejects the standard eulogy. A eulogy is essentially just it's a resume of behavior.
Yeah, a resume. That's a great way to put it.
It tells you what a person did, but it completely fails to capture who they actually were. The underlying logic in Menca is that the dead do not navigate by sight or, by moral standing. They navigate through sensory recognition. So the families are required to bring hyper-specific, granular sensory details.
So, like what kind of details?
Like a grandmother who kept peppermints strictly in the left pocket of her cardigan, or a man who always, only made his half of the bed.
Oh, wow.
And he would just stand there staring at his wife's unmade half as if it presented some complex philosophical problem.
I love that distinction. I mean, when you think about it, a generic summary of a person's virtues leaves you feeling somewhat empty.
It really does.
But a highly specific data point, like the smell of a very particular childhood recipe cooking on a Sunday afternoon, or the exact squeak of your grandfather's screen door, it operates like a time machine.
Exactly. It bypasses the logical brain entirely.
You smell that recipe and you're instantly transported back. It hits the emotional core far better than a staged photograph ever could.
And that sensory trigger is the entire foundation of the ritual. Menca doesn't operate under some rigid theology of heaven or hell. The structure of the lighthouse is as much civic as it is spiritual.
Yeah, the town brings these incredibly intimate papers, the keeper burns them in the lamp, and the families consistently report that their grief shifts.
It stops feeling like a raw, open wound.
Right, and it transforms into a specific internal geography that they can safely return to. Okay, let's unpack this, because I understand how that benefits the town, but I have a major issue with the keeper himself.
Oh, Tomás.
Yeah. Tomás has been executing this ritual for 4 decades. Yet, he admits to a visiting journalist that he holds absolutely no conviction about the afterlife.
Not at all.
He says he doesn't actually believe the light works in any supernatural sense. He claims he merely maintains it. He checks the oil, he trims the wick, he burns the papers, and he goes home.
It's just a job to him.
Exactly. But isn't this philosophy of pure maintenance just a massive psychological defense mechanism? Like, if he refuses to believe in the destination, he completely insulates himself from the vulnerability of the ritual failing.
I mean, I see the temptation to view his detachment as cowardice or, an emotional shield. But look at the mechanism of his role in that community.
Okay.
An old log entry from a previous keeper explicitly describes their job, not as a priest, but as a translator. Tomás is tasked with translating the terrifying, incomprehensible scale of death into a usable, practical ritual for people in crisis.
So you're saying his emptiness is actually a feature, not a bug.
Precisely. Consider how we rely on surgeons or emergency responders. We do not want them breaking down in tears over our trauma.
No, definitely not.
We want them focused on the mechanics of saving us. If Tomás inserted his own rigid theology, his own ego, or his own desperate need for faith into that burning process.
It would make it all about him.
Exactly. The ritual would suddenly become about his spiritual journey, his absolute uncertainty. His pure focus on the physical maintenance of the lamp is what keeps the practice entirely neutral.
It creates a blank canvas.
Yes, allowing the grieving families to project their own meaning onto the flame without interference.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes the lighthouse a sort of public utility for mourning.
Right.
But that entire philosophy of detached, safe maintenance is about to be completely dismantled.
Completely destroyed.
Because visitors to Menca almost exclusively arrive on the weekends, right? To see the anomaly of the landlocked lighthouse. But the narrative takes a sharp turn on a quiet Wednesday.
A little break in the pattern.
A rental car comes tearing up the eastern road. Out steps Lena Marsh. She is 41 years old. She is dying of hereditary ovarian cancer with only a few months left to live.
And she just drops a bomb.
She walks into Tomás's home, sits at his kitchen table, and reveals that she is his daughter.
Yeah.
Her mother was Catia, a woman Tomás loved deeply and left just before he took the post at the lighthouse 40 years ago. He had absolutely no idea she was pregnant when he walked away.
It is a staggering collision of a man's buried past and his very immediate present.
Totally staggering.
And what makes Lena's arrival so disruptive is that she doesn't show up seeking a tearful reunion. She doesn't demand apologies for his absence.
No, she's all business.
She arrives carrying the intense, hyper-focused urgency of someone who knows their time is running out. She reveals that her mother, Catia, actually visited this very lighthouse 14 months prior, left her own sensory description paper, and passed away shortly after.
And Lena is not there just to drop off her own paper for the archive. She has a much more complicated demand. She wants to know if the light can be calibrated to a specific destination.
She's terrified.
Yeah, she is terrified of being guided out into some dark, formless void. She wants Tomás to guarantee that the light will guide her directly, specifically to her mother.
We really need to analyze Lena's background to understand why she asks for this. Lena is a professional literary translator.
Right.
Her entire career, her entire life, really has been spent finding the exact right words to carry meaning across impossible, silent divides between different languages.
That's her whole worldview.
Exactly. Now, facing her own death, she's applying that exact same professional logic to the afterlife. She is asking her father to act as the ultimate translator for her grief, demanding a guaranteed cosmic reunion.
And for everyone listening, try to put yourself in Tomás's position for just a moment. Imagine you have spent 40 years meticulously avoiding certainty. You've survived by never asking what the flame actually does, hiding behind the safety of daily chores.
Just sweeping the floors and trimming the wicks.
Right, and suddenly your dying daughter, a woman you just met, is sitting across from you, terrified, asking you to guarantee that the supernatural mechanism actually works.
It's an impossible ask.
It is. I mean, we all desperately seek guarantees when faced with unpredictable tragedies in our own lives, right? We want the universe to give us a tracking number for the people we lose. But how does a man who has practiced 40 years of agnosticism suddenly provide that map?
Well, he can't. Not using the detached methods he's always relied on. This crisis forces Tomás to completely abandon his safe routine and look backward into the history of the lighthouse. He is forced to consult the archive he has intentionally ignored.
He has to open the wooden box.
Yes, Sarah's box.
The source material details that Tomás has possessed a locked wooden box left by the previous keeper, a woman named Sarah, who died 22 years ago. He has kept the key on his ring this entire time, but actively chose never to open it.
You didn't want to know?
Right. But Lena's impossible request finally pushes him past his own fear, compelling him to unlock it and see what the architects of this ritual actually intended.
The contents of Sarah's box fundamentally rewrite everything Tomás thought he knew about his job. Inside, he finds a sealed vial of highly concentrated, ancient source oil.
Okay.
He discovers 3 old, folded description papers that Sarah preserved specifically for what she termed calibration. And most crucially, he unrolls a hand-drawn cloth map.
Okay. Let's dive deep into this map because it is the key to the entire paradox. It is drawn in heavy ink on rough cloth. It shows Menca, this completely landlocked, dry town positioned dead center.
Right.
But at the extreme edges of the cloth, there are coastlines. It depicts actual oceans, complete with depth lines, shoals, and maritime hazards. These are oceans that are physically 1,100 miles away. Logically, it makes zero sense.
What's fascinating here is it only makes zero sense if you're reading it as a map of physical geography.
Okay.
Looking at this cloth, Tomás finally realizes his fundamental misunderstanding. He always believed the lighthouse was a mistake, a building constructed in the wrong location. But the map is not charting physical distance. It is charting orientation.
So the coastlines represent the concept of being lost rather than actual water.
Exactly that. The oceans on the map represent any profound disorientation. The lighthouse is the absolute magnetic north. Whether a person is a maritime navigator lost at sea or a grief navigator lost in the crushing weight of mourning, the light acts as the central axis around which everything else must align.
Think about how we view the center of our own lives. Like, to you, listening right now, your childhood home might be the absolute center of your internal map.
Sure.
Even if that house is geographically located in the middle of nowhere, a tiny dot in a flyover state that no one else cares about. To your emotional compass, that location is the center of the universe.
Right.
This lighthouse was designed specifically for this isolated, landlocked location because the architects understood that the most powerful, necessary navigation is always inward.
That's beautifully said. Furthermore, Sarah leaves a letter in the box that explicitly confirms this design. She explains that the light is not a passive beacon. It can indeed choose a specific destination, but it requires 2 things. First, it requires multiple reference points to triangulate a signal, which is why she left the calibration papers. Second, and most terrifying for Tomás, it requires the keeper to actively believe in the destination.
Oh.
The mechanism completely fails if the operator remains emotionally detached.
Oh, wow. This realization drives us to the climax of the account, which is the burning of Catia's paper.
The big moment.
Armed with the ancient oil and the knowledge that his own internal state dictates the outcome, Tomás and Lena ascend to the lamp room. Tomás pours the ancient concentrated oil from Sarah's vial into the mechanism, and the sensory descriptions in the text peak here.
They get so intense.
The smell of the oil shifts from that standard rain on hot stone to something much deeper and more overwhelming.
And then Tomás reads Lena's highly specific sensory description of her mother. He doesn't read a generic summary of a nice woman. He reads that Catia smelled intensely of jasmine and pharmaceutical hand cream.
Such a specific scent.
He reads that she played her acoustic guitar with her eyes completely closed when she had a piece memorized, but kept them wide open when she was struggling to learn it.
I don't know about that detail.
He reads about her specific Friday soup and a laugh that vibrated so deeply it resonated in the chest of anyone standing near her.
And as he reads those words, the emotional wall Tomás built over 4 decades completely collapses. He is no longer reading this as a detached, professional custodian.
No.
He is reading it as a father sitting next to his dying daughter, and as a man remembering a woman he deeply loved. He recognizes the very essence of Catia in those specific details, and in that crucial moment, he finally adopts belief.
Yes.
But he doesn't adopt it as some blind, dogmatic religious faith. He picks it up as a practical instrument.
Exactly.
He wields belief the way a surgeon wields a scalpel, picking it up for a highly specific, urgent task because the person in front of him desperately needs it to survive the moment.
And then he drops the paper into the flame. Sarah's notes dictate that the physical contact matters. The warmth of the keeper's hand must merge with the paper as it combusts.
Right.
When he does this, the flame physically changes. It shifts from standard fire to a deep, heavy amber honey hue. The glass room fills with a scent that Tomás can't even identify.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Lena watches this entire process, and the text describes her as suddenly feeling settled. Her terror simply evaporates, which raises the ultimate question of the deep dive. Does it actually matter if this amber light truly pierces the veil of the afterlife?
That's the big question.
But even if the entire experience is completely psychological and bound by standard physics, isn't the ritual 100% successful? If a dying woman enters that room terrified of falling into a void and leaves that room feeling guided and anchored, the ritual has performed exactly as intended.
I mean, if we look at the core function of human rituals, the objective truth of the afterlife is pretty much irrelevant here. The ritual produces a tangible, undeniable psychological reality.
Right.
Lena was terrified of a free fall. Her father's active participation, his willingness to step out of his safe detachment and utilize belief as a tool, transforms her impending death from a free fall into a navigation. The subjective peace she experiences is the only reality that matters in that lamp room.
It transforms a free fall into a navigation. That is a brilliant way to frame it. But the true measure of this ritual isn't just what happens during the emotional peak of the burning.
No, it's what happens after.
It is what happens the next morning. Lena does not pass away in the lamp room. The burning was merely the preparation. She lives for 11 more days, and how she spends that time completely redefines Tomás's understanding of his life's work.
Yeah, she spends those final days interacting with the town, utilizing her skills as a translator one last time. She carries this red notebook and actively records the sensory memories of the townspeople.
So she starts gathering them.
Exactly. For instance, she speaks with a young woman named Paz, who recently arrived in Menca grieving her partner. Lena doesn't ask Kaz for a summary of his character. She demands a specific detail.
And what does Paz say?
Paz shares that her partner bought incredibly expensive coffee beans, but somehow managed to brew consistently terrible coffee every single morning, all while believing he was a master barista.
That's so real.
Lena writes that exact detail down, effectively becoming a keeper of their memories before she dies.
And right before she passes, she leaves Tomás with a metaphor that crystallizes the entire phenomenon of the lighthouse. She tells him, "One light, many apertures, we are the glass."
Very perfect.
It perfectly encapsulates the dynamic. The light itself, the human capacity for connection, is constant and blinding, but it is the people, the keepers, the grieving families, and those hyper-specific sensory details that act as the glass. We bend the light, we give it color, we give the void a shape.
It is a stunning synthesis of the ritual. And when Lena finally passes away in the room beneath the lamp, the narrative defies expectations. We don't get a scene of Tomás collapsing into ruin.
Right, he doesn't just give up.
His daughter's death doesn't destroy the progress he made.
Instead, he sits down and writes her description paper himself. He documents her short, unevenly cut hair, the specific callus on her finger from holding a translator's pen, and her strange ability to fall asleep right in the middle of a conversation.
Beautiful details.
And when Sunday arrives, he doesn't burn her paper in private to hide his grief. He burns it at the public gathering with the entire town of Menca present. And the practice simply continues. Paz, the young woman with the memory of the terrible coffee, steps forward.
Yeah, she steps up.
She asks Tomás to teach her the mechanics of the lamp. She becomes his apprentice, learning how to press the uncatalogued oil on Tuesday mornings.
And that continuation of the practice is the ultimate resolution of the account. Paz stepping into the role proves that the ritual is infinitely larger than Tomás and larger than Lena. It belongs to the geography of the town, serving as an accumulated living record of human need and resilience.
So, how do we apply this profound paradox to our own lives? This deep dive completely flips the standard narrative around loss. Grief is not presented here as a temporary wound that needs to be healed or a hole that you are expected to eventually fill.
No, not at all.
Lena offers an incredible insight before she dies. Grief is the lighthouse the dead leave in you. It is not something you cure. It becomes a permanent geography that you simply have to learn to navigate by.
Because the nature of the absence changes over time. It settles, much like sediment slowly drifting to the bottom of a glass of water. It stops clouding your everyday vision and eventually becomes a fixed point on your internal map.
Right.
What this account reveals is that whether you are dealing with the literal grief of losing someone or you are just trying to navigate a massively disorienting transition in your career or personal life, you don't always need absolute scientific certainty to move forward.
Sometimes the map doesn't exist yet.
Precisely. Sometimes your willingness to just maintain the practice, to wake up, to press the oil, to do the mundane work is entirely enough. And other times, when the situation demands it, you have to be willing to drop your emotional armor and pick up belief as a tool. Not because you suddenly have undeniable proof of how the universe works, but because someone you love is terrified, and they urgently need you to help them navigate the dark.
Picking up belief as an instrument to help someone else navigate, that is incredibly powerful. We have journeyed from a baffling logistical impossibility, a fully functioning lighthouse, 1,000 miles from any ocean, to a profound masterclass in human connection, the mechanics of translation, and the incredible anchoring weight of specific memories.
It ultimately forces every single one of us to question how we are actively recording the people we love, and in turn, what specific details we're leaving behind to be recorded by them.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to carry forward. We started this deep dive by talking about a reliance on maps and how much we love the logic of visible fixed borders.
We do.
But if the afterlife, or even just the way you are remembered in family history, navigates entirely by sensory recognition rather than a logical resume of your daily accomplishments, what would your paper say?
That's a heavy question.
Do not think about your virtues or your job titles or how many times you volunteered. What is the hyper-specific sensory detail that proves the absolute instance of you?
Yeah.
Is it the anxious way you tap your pen against your coffee mug when you are deep in thought? Is it a specific terrible joke you refuse to stop telling? Is it the exact smell of your wool jacket right after a heavy rainstorm? Think about what strange, beautiful, highly specific details your loved ones would have to write down to make absolutely sure they could always, always find you.